Hey, good evening, guys. This is Mark, Plant Medicine Path. And tonight we have a friend of mine. I just been kind of messaging back and forth with him the last few months. His name is Freddy Larrosa. Freddie's been working with ayahuasca and the Columbians in the Shipibo tribe for a little while. And I'll let you kind of explain his story. But tonight we're going to talk about ayahuasca. Ayahuasca, man, ayahuasca was my medicine. It was the one that really catalyzed me to explore myself more and explore more of these medicines. And it was really the medicine that kind of escalated everything. And, we're going to talk a little bit about that more tonight. Me and Freddie are going to have a little conversation back and forth, and we'll inform you guys about this beautiful, beautiful medicine. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Fred.
Well, I'm originally from Ecuador. I live out in Rhode Island, but yeah, I was born in Ecuador, kind of shifted back and forth between the States and Ecuador as a child. And then I've been here for the last 10 years now, but I traveled a little bit throughout my early 20s and things like that across South America. And my family is from Uruguay as well on my father's end, so I spent a good time out there. And yeah, now I'm back up here in the States. I've been on this path of soul searching and learning about who I am, and learning about my traumas and a little bit of how to manage all of these things, right? And I stumbled onto ayahuasca through my exploration with other medicines. I started my journey with self-exploration with LSD and psilocybin. And essentially, psilocybin in one of my journeys actually told me, you need to go sit with the grandmother. And so that's where I started to seek ayahuasca. And she had been in my ear for a good amount of time before that. I had heard about it. Some friends of mine had been doing ayahuasca and had told me, about all these, beautiful properties that it had. Back then, I was very deep in my addictions as well, very deep in, not taking care of myself and liquor, you name it, I was there. So when I came to grandmother, that's when things started to change in my life, and that's when things started to take a turn. But it took some time too. It wasn't after my first ceremony that suddenly my life was changed, and I became this person who was healed from all of his traumas or anything. But it definitely opened the door. It allowed me to see certain things and where the work needed to happen. And since then, which was it's going to be 9 years now, I've been a student of this medicine and other plant medicines. But ayahuasca has been one of the main medicines that I've worked throughout my journey. I started my journey working under Columbian Taitas, and then that led me also into working with some Shipibo Maestros. Currently, I work mainly with Shipibo Maestros. From time to time, I'll assist in ceremonies with Colombian practitioners when I'm needed, when I'm called. I sometimes offer just my music while they hold their ceremonies, and that's kind of how I started my journey. Was
Right.
sitting in these ceremonies, and I remember my first ceremony after I had a bit of my process. I could feel the music. I was listening to all this music of my ancestors and music that I hadn't heard. Mind you, I did my first ayahuasca here in the States, which is funny enough, that it comes from a place like Ecuador or a place like Peru, or, from where I come from. But when I was living out there, I wasn't really exposed to it. And whatever small percentage of exposition that you would have to it, it would kind of be shut down because I grew up in a very Catholic family, or it's a very Catholic environment in general. So things like ayahuasca for a very long time are, considered black magic, and it's kind of frowned upon amongst religious groups. So that kind of stayed in the back burner. But yeah, I started my journey listening to all this music, and I felt inspired, and so I came up to the shaman and I said, "Can I play a song for you?" And he said, "Yeah, of course. Grab the guitar." So I played the song, and it became this beautiful conversatory and kind of sharing space together, and it became kind of a celebration actually at that point, where we were just sharing songs and sharing stories about, he was telling me about his land. He was from Putumayo, Colombia, which is the jungle region of Colombia. And he was just telling me, all these stories about the songs that he was singing. And I was immediately, hooked and ready to dive deeper into it and to learn from them and to offer my services. So I regularly started coming back to these ceremonies, offering my music, doing my work as I was doing that, but definitely in somewhat of an apprenticeship, you would say, an unspoken apprenticeship, where I'd sit by the altar. I was looking at everything that was happening. I was learning, and so I've been on that path for many years. And finally, the last 2 years, I've been serving ayahuasca. I've received the blessings of my Shipibo Maestros down in Peru to work with their medicine and to serve their medicine, which is a great honor. And so since then, I've been working with that medicine. I also work with different other medicines. I work with Wachuma, which is San Pedro, the sacred grandfather cactus. But yeah, ayahuasca was the beginning of my journey and has been an incredible path of transformation for myself. And it's given me an opportunity to look deeper into myself and look deeper into the traumas and I knew what I had grown up with, but ayahuasca is kind of like an opportunity to put it under the microscope a little more and look a little deeper into why, certain actions and why certain reactions and why I feel certain ways, and just looking at all these things and allowing me a space to move through them, to acknowledge them, to heal from them, to scream if I need to cry, to purge, everything that ayahuasca brings has definitely opened the door for me to improve my life in many different ways. And I can show up better for myself. I can show up better for my community. And it's an ongoing journey, by far. I would never consider myself a master at this work. There's people who've been doing this their whole lives and have been born into it. So I do come to this medicine as well with a lot of respect and honoring those who obviously know more and obviously have been doing this for longer, and find my way into their teachings and how to apply their teachings into my life. But then also allowing the medicine as an intelligence of its own to teach me what I need to learn from it and how I can apply that into my own process and into my own ceremonies. So it's been quite an amazing journey so far, and every day is a new opportunity to keep growing and to keep learning from it.
Well, your humbleness is amazing. I mean, egos play a lot of part in this path, and to dig deep and to go deep. And you mentioned that a lot, how you're going into yourself and you're looking into yourself. And this is what these medicines do. And you touched on a lot of great topics, especially the lineage. I mean, I think ayahuasca has a really powerful entity in it to find those lineages and expose them to you and see who we are, because who we are is okay. We just we want to live a better life than what we were taught. I mean, ayahuasca is definitely a love medicine and opens that heart way up, and it's just a beautiful thing. And what you're doing is such a beautiful thing, and the humbleness you have is really amazing. And you've been on this path for a long time. I mean, 9 years, pretty long time in the Western world to be exploring these medicines. I feel. I mean, we're just touching the ground floor on these medicines, and we need people like you to bring this to the forefront like you do. And thank you so much. So it's really
I'm definitely honored to do it. I do want to mention and stress how important it is to also to do this work with lineage, with the people who have been working with these medicines for hundreds and thousands of years. So I mean, there's different tribes all across South America that work the medicine in different ways.
Right.
They're out in Ecuador, they're in Peru, they're in Colombia. Everyone has a different approach as to how they serve their medicine, how their ceremonies are run,
Right.
um, what kind of prayers and enchantments. Everything is different, but the overall consensus, I would say, is this is a medicine for healing, and it's a medicine that needs to be very much respected and
Right.
to come with a humble soul. So
Mhm.
the only way I can stay humble is because I've allowed myself to be humbled by this medicine, because it's also
Mhm.
not an easy path.
Yes.
It's not for the tourist, you would say,
It
that
really
just wants
isn't.
to come and see some light shows. It really
Hmm.
is beyond that, and I think part of what I want to bring with my practice as well, and what I offer the people whom I serve, is an understanding of this, is an understanding of ayahuasca is not just this light show where you're going to see all these really cool patterns and have all these hallucinations. There's a deeper path
Right.
that is underlying all of that, and it's the knowingness, and it's like it's the understanding of who we are, where we come from, and how to integrate that into our lives, how to honor our ancestors, how to look so far back where we can see all that, but then also heal those lineages so that we can pave the road for the lineages to come and for the generations to come. So, we're
Said
doing.
perfectly. That is absolutely said perfectly. That's exactly what the medicine is intended to do. And these are trauma medicines. I mean, all these plant medicines, they seem to, for some way, shape, or form, heal traumas. And it's this integration, the before part integration, the during and the after. I mean, medicines are just an experience. I mean, for me, the most part, I would rather not have those hallucinations. I would rather, for the most part, get the message. I
Mm,
want the message. And
yeah,
I think that message comes clearer the more you're on this path. In the beginning, we don't know what to make of a lot of these messages, but the more you're on this path, your mind is clearing so much. And it's like you're taking that plastic off your brain so you can kind of absorb what the new messages. It's just amazing how these medicines work when used
yeah,
properly in the proper set and settings and with the proper people.
yeah, definitely. It's not a, like I said, it's not a medicine to take lightly in absolutely no way or form. Um, there's a reason why these tribes have been doing it for so many years, and they've not only mastered ayahuasca as a plant, but if you go down to places like Peru, where the Shipibos are master herbalists and work with all the plants. So part of your experience and part of your journey is also dieting different plants that will also add to your understanding of yourself and of how ayahuasca works in tandem with all these other plants. And another really important thing for me to mention is, yes, the plant obviously brings, and the properties that the plants have, are allowing us to heal, but this healing also happens from within, and this is,
Mm-hmm.
so the plants basically act like a channel for us to be able to open up ourselves, open up our hearts, open up our minds, so that we can start to heal from within. So it's because I don't want to offer people or allow people to think for 1 second that you're going to come to ayahuasca and she's going to do the work for you.
Right.
It really doesn't happen that way. There is a lot of physical elements to this, right? Where the purging, the screaming, the crying, all of these are considered purges. Every aspect of what's moving physically through us is a form of purging. And what does that mean is to release, right? A lot of our trauma, a lot of the hurt, the anger, the suffering, a lot of these things that we're holding on to physically in our body, which in turn creates uh, illness. These are
Right.
the things that ayahuasca helps us to purge. But at the same time that she's doing this healing, there is that internal part of us that needs to want it as well, that needs to decide when I'm going to surrender all of these things, right? So there's, I've been in ceremonies where I've been in excruciating pain for hours and hours and hours because I've not wanted to let go of a certain thing or something that I'm just simply not wanting to look at, this darkness or whatever it is. And ayahuasca will make it known to you that it's not going to be easy, and it's not something that is just going to be taken away so lightly. where no, you have to do this work. You have to sit with your pain. You have to sit with your trauma. You have to sit with it and see it from different perspectives, which is the beauty of what it allows you to do, right? To kind of leave the body for a minute so that you can see from different perspectives. And this is where the visionary space can be both very beautiful and enlightening, because that visionary space can create a space for you to see from that dimension or the multi-dimensional realms that you're catapulted into. You can see different things from different timelines and from different perspectives, and that also allows you to then come back and integrate that into your body and say, oh, okay, well, I've finally been able to look at my pain from a different perspective, or from a perspective of the other. A lot of what I understood about my pain and have been understanding throughout my process has also been, understanding why the person whom I received any, pain from, where does their pain come from? And allowing myself to go all the way back to understanding, wow, this is something that stems not just from my childhood traumas, but this stems lineages and
Absolutely.
generations and
Hmm.
generations to go back. So, the work is really extensive, and it
And
takes a
aren't
lot.
we blessed? Aren't we pretty blessed to be the foundation of that change? I mean, a lot of times that's pretty hard to accept for some of us new on this path. And, I want to talk a little bit about people coming new on this path.
Mm-hmm.
And we've mentioned both, I think. We've thought about this medicine, coming to this medicine for a little while. I just don't think a lot of people say ayahuasca and they jump right into it. So, what kind of led you to break that stigma and to break all these we mentioned a lot of things of work and scary and this and that. So,
Mm-hmm.
what do we do to ease some of this kind of mindset that we do have? Because there is an absolute beauty to these journeys.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the beginning is kind of tough. But I guess when you accept that, it's just really a blessing. I mean, to see people like you and me and these addictions we went through and these lifelong traumas, it's just, I mean, these medicines work. And, kind of want to reassure people that these medicines work with
Yeah.
proper facilitators and stuff like that.
Well, there's
So,
definitely, now there's the mystical aspect to it as well, right? The
right.
magic that it brings,
Hmm.
that um, can only be experienced in a ceremony and can be felt through the music and the icaros, or the songs, right? So an icaro in the Shipibo tradition is a sacred song that comes from the medicine.
Right.
And so basically, the patterns that they see, which look very much like the patterns that I have on my bracelet. So everything that this is pretty much like their sheet music. And when they're in this experience, they're seeing all these patterns, they're reading the music, and they're singing the songs. And so there is that magic that happens that comes directly from the plant, where she's teaching these songs, where she's teaching these vibrations that come out that also allow the healing. So for the Shipibos, and in their the way that they view the form of healing is, everything is vibration, right? Our molecules, everything is vibrating. So the songs that are coming forth through them are literally changing our molecular structure as the songs are coming. And it's this beautiful magic that happens when the songs are sung, and they allow us to go deeper into us. Now, to bring something, like an aspect of what's light about ayahuasca is absolutely everything.
Hmm.
It's absolute love.
Yep.
But within that, I don't want to fall into the bypassing of, well, love and light is just that, it's just good things, and it just feels good all the time. Love, real love, it encompasses all aspects of life, and within that there is darkness and there is light. So I
Absolutely.
don't speak of the darker aspects, and I don't speak of the difficulties that come when working with this medicine as something to be afraid of, but rather something to embrace, because true love for oneself is allowing oneself to be seen in all aspects, right? So I get to see the beauty in my pain, and I get to eventually come to a point where I can laugh, where I can be grateful, because that pain has brought me to where I am in this moment. And these are the things that ayahuasca allows us to see. Is like, it's not that I'm going to be magically relieved from it, but I'm going to have an understanding of it so that I can make peace with it, so that I can move in my life with a lot more grace
Right.
and have a lot more grace in everything that I do and a lot more gratitude. Um, there is that aspect of ayahuasca is absolute love,
Right.
but
It is.
within that we do have to do some work, and that's why, you know, that's why it's not for everyone either. Like I do want to be very responsible in bringing this to the table, because it's not for absolutely everybody, and I don't recommend that everybody do it. I feel
Mhm.
like it has to be a deep calling, and I feel like there's a rigorous uh, amount of screening that
Right.
needs to happen before people come to ceremony, on
Hmm.
physical levels, on mental levels. There are serious, mental, uh, what I'm going to say, there are some serious mental things that happen, that if we haven't treated them properly and we come to ayahuasca, things like schizophrenia, these are things that don't match with the medicine. So
Absolutely.
there is a process that needs to happen before coming
Hmm.
to the medicine. But outside of that, outside of being deeply called to this medicine,
Hmm.
in the end, there's nothing really to be afraid of. Once you've listened to the call, there is obviously the nerves there. It's nerve wracking
Right.
to see the ego die, right? And to feel like, oh my God, I'm going to literally die. And I've had so many ceremonies where I'm curled up in a ball and I'm, fighting for my life, because my ego is thinking that I'm going to leave my body. And in a certain way you do, but we're much more than this body. And that's what we get to learn with ayahuasca too, is once you
Yes.
surrender to that
Right.
death, once you surrender
Hmm.
to what your ego is holding on to, there is a vast uh, amount of learning that can happen in that space once we've left the body, and once we really allow ourselves to journey into that and learn a little bit more of who we are. So there's
Right.
there's so much beauty in that. And I mean, I you can say I'm a sucker for pain, because it comes with that, right? And it comes with allowing ourselves to feel that, and to let ourselves really hold space for that, for all the pain to come through, for all the sadness to come through, and then to also give thanks for it, because it is, it's here, it's made us who we are. I can only say now, after the journey that I've had, is my pain has made me stronger. My pain has made
Absolutely.
me a lot more wiser, a lot
Mm.
more mindful, and I can go on with the list of how many things have really improved in my life from working with this medicine.
It's something about the pain before we went to the medicine and the pain after. It's a real
Mm.
different pain. And I don't know how we overcome that as we progress on this path. And there is something special. You touch on your music, and there's something so special about music in general, but a music in a ceremony, it's just something about that it almost talks to you. And
Yeah, and it moves the medicine.
absolutely.
The music in, I mean, and like I said, there's different traditions hold different ceremonies, and they all have different ways. The ways that I've learned, and the paths that I've sat and followed through, um, what I notice is the music is, you know, it's a huge component. I'm not going to say, a percentage of it, but it is a massive component of how
Absolutely.
this medicine moves. And I've,
Mhm.
you were saying something about, the pain before and after, and I'm so blessed that I get to see people um, come to ceremony, and I look into their eyes and they're terrified, and
Yep.
they're holding on to all this pain and all this suffering. And then, come Sunday, after a 2-day retreat,
Right.
sitting with their grandmother for a couple of days, you see
Hmm.
this massive transformation. And that's why I keep coming back, and that's
Isn't
why.
that beautiful? I mean, and it happens to almost everybody. And you know another thing about those ceremonies, when you're in those ceremonies with that group of people, that group of people almost always you're intertwined almost for life. Most of you, it's pretty amazing how these medicine spaces work. It's just such a connection, deep connection.
Yeah, I mean, you find your, what you could call, I guess, your soul tribe, right? I mean,
Mhm.
my first ceremony, I met my brothers and some sisters, and to this day, they're my family, and they've
Right.
become, they are my family, and we've probably been doing this for lifetimes together, over and over again, and healing karmic cycles, and whatever that looks like, that journey on its own is immense, of the soul, and how many times we've been here, and how many times we keep coming back to do this work, to heal our ancestry, to pave the road for our kids and their generations to come. And all the time
it's happening now.
it's amazing.
I feel this movement so strong right now. It's
Yeah,
just
and
such a blessing.
it's also a fabulous thing to see it. It comes with both sides of it, right? There's many people who would rather not see ayahuasca leave the jungle and stay in the jungle with the people who have been working with it. I feel like ayahuasca is a hyper intelligent plant, and ayahuasca knows why it's allowed itself to leave the jungles and be able to reach so many people now. So in turn, that creates a bit of a severance of certain traditions, and it happens a lot, especially here in the States. There's a lot of people who practice ayahuasca, who work with it, and everybody's figuring out how to serve their own style, and how to bring in their own energies into it. And this is all fine. It's all good. I feel there's two lines to it, right? And there's a line that shouldn't or should not be crossed, as far as how far away from the tradition we take it.
Right.
There are things that should be honored, and there are things that are worth keeping, because there's a reason why these people have been doing it for millennia.
Can you mention some of those things that you would want to keep, that you feel really sacred about?
The way that we open a ceremony, the way that we bless and activate the medicine, the prayers and the enchantments that come with the activation of the medicine. So it's not just a matter of, here's your cup, thank you, have a nice journey. There is a whole aspect of spiritual protection that happens when we're opening a container, when we're closing a container, and how you're supposed to be cleansing. And I see a lot of these things also get lost along the way, because we want to integrate all these new different things, which like I said, is fine. But there are, for me at least, I think it's very sacred when you open a container with the proper prayers. And this is why it's important to get trained, and this is why it's important to go sit with the tribes, so that you can learn from them. Because another beautiful thing is they're not, maybe years ago they were very jealous about their medicine and sharing it with people, but now they understand as well that the world needs this healing.
Absolutely.
So they're willing to share if you're willing to go down and do the work, they're willing to share their wisdom with you. And that's the beauty of it. So there's no excuse to saying, well, I'm just going to do it my way because whatever. There is, and I do it in my own ceremonies. I have my own way of calling in the medicine, bringing my own spirit and songs into it. But there are things that I do hold very sacred, like the prayers and like the songs and certain icaros and things that we bring into ceremony that belong to these traditions that have been doing it for a very long time. And my path is still very much starting in this, and so there's so much to learn for me as I keep moving. But at least that's one of the most sacred things. And then the second aspect to it is the way that we're brewing the medicine, and what kind of energy is coming to it, and what kind of prayers are coming into it. So there's that side of things too, where it, to an extent, it has become so accessible, where anybody can sit and brew a pot of ayahuasca without the proper understanding of everything that needs to happen in that process while we're brewing, what the space needs to look like, the cleansings that need to happen, why we blow mapacho, why we work with the tobacco, why we sing certain songs. So it's all of that is something important, because I'm going to serve you a cup of this brew, which I'm putting my vibration into, and it's entirely sacred, the space that I create for this brew to happen. And I have to be very careful as to what kind of energy I'm putting into it, what kind of prayers I'm putting into it, because then I'm serving this to my brothers and sisters. So there is so much that needs to happen before we sit in an ayahuasca ceremony and start serving this medicine, which seems very easy, once you've sat in a few ceremonies. And especially, there's so many experienced psychonauts, right, that say, oh, well, I can handle ayahuasca pretty well, I guess I'm going to start serving it. It doesn't work that way.
It really doesn't. No, it does not.
So
And
Yeah.
It's just, that's dangerous. You know, a lot of these things that people are doing are a little dangerous, and there's things that go along with this. I mean, there are, like we said earlier, there's mental issues with people and so on and so forth. So you got to be careful. You got to be careful who's serving you the medicine. You know, just is.
Yeah,
It's your
I
life.
mean, if I can chime in on that is,
Yeah.
being very vigilant
Mm-hmm.
of who your, like you said, who your servers are,
Mm-hmm.
who is assisting in the ceremony, what things are happening in ceremony. I've heard so many horror stories too, and I don't want people to be afraid of it, but I
Absolutely.
do want people to be
Mm-hmm.
vigilant of where they sit. And this one of the reasons why I say this is because I've seen it firsthand, and
Right.
I've been in plenty of spaces that have not been safe, that have not been held sacred, and I've worked with people who have not honored this medicine. So I do want to make that very clear that when we come to this medicine, some of us are very desperate. So
Absolutely.
we'll jump into the first ceremony that I find and not
Mm-hmm.
do the proper research. And I'm so desperate for my healing that I'll just take it from anyone.
Yeah.
But sometimes, good things, the really good things take a little bit of time, and it's good to, I would always recommend go to the jungle, go sit with the tribes. If you
Mm-hmm.
can't, if it's really, something that you can't do and it's out of your limit and it's out of your reach, there are spaces, there are responsible practitioners here too. Just do your research, and
And that's why we do what we do at the Plant Medicine Path. That's why we established this platform, just for that ethical aspect of these medicines, because there are many, many good practitioners in the States, as well as down in South America and Peru. So it's just be vigilant, like we both say. Be vigilant. Do your homework. Do your research. You can always reach out to people on our platform, on our page. But let's talk about another real mild medicine, real quick, that you kind of work with. I call it mild compared to ayahuasca, but it's wachuma. We just did a ceremony a few weeks ago, and that's a beautiful one. That's definitely a different medicine, I can say, but really another heart opening medicine, but more of a direct message kind of medicine, but very
Mhm.
gentle, very
Yeah.
gentle.
Well, it's the counterpart, right? Ayahuasca would be considered the grandmother or that feminine spirit. And so if you look at the feminine, it's a receptive energy, right? So the feminine receives it. You receive from ayahuasca all these downloads. It takes you on these journeys. Um, Wachuma is a little more direct, like you were saying. Wachuma is the masculine aspect. So it's, the masculine is more action. Okay, what do we need to get done for our healing? And you know, it can be considered mild, but in reality, it's a very powerful medicine. And again,
I guess
another
mild in our aspects, Freddie, how we like our
yeah,
ass beat. It's a pretty
exactly.
mild.
So if you're used to getting whooped by the
Yeah,
grandmother, then yeah, you come to grandfather, and it's like, oh wow, this is
yeah.
this is completely different.
Hmm.
But it's part of it. Funny enough, in my family and in my life, my grandmother was very very stern, and she was very hard handed, and I laugh at it now because I see how I came to grandmother ayahuasca, and grandmother ayahuasca is my grandmother, literally, and she has all this love, but sometimes she's
Right.
gonna beat it into me.
Hmm.
And grandfather medicine symbolizes my own grandfathers who were very peaceful, gentle men. So uh,
Right.
grandfather Wachuma is a lot more gentle in that sense, but there is a beauty to it. So wachuma, the word wachuma means to sever the head or to decapitate oneself, and that's kind of the preface you would say to sitting with wachuma is how to learn to live in our heart space and to come from our hearts rather than our heads. And most of what happens when we're living in our trauma, when we're living in our pain, it's happening here. It's happening
Right.
in our head. And our mind is creating all of these different things in our bodies because we've continuously told ourselves a story that we're not okay, that we're not healthy. And then, you add this to your environment, you add this to society, schools, music, everything that we've been exposed to in life. So we tend to live a life where we feel very unworthy of love and unworthy of joy and
We're
happiness.
just very vulnerable to every situation. Very vulnerable.
Yes. And so, I believe that that's our birthright. It is our birthright. So I have an 11-month-old daughter, and she is my guru, who's teaching me what it means to be whole. And when I was a child, I was once like that, and I can see these things being reflected to me, how she doesn't come to this world with all this pain and all this suffering and all this. These are the things that condition us throughout our life, because she's not living in her head. She's just eternally present, right? She's living just by the moment in her heart. And so she cries when she needs to cry, she laughs when she needs to laugh. But it's this being in the eternal present moment that allows her to just be. And so there's no notions of, oh, I'm being good, I'm being bad, I'm happy, I'm sad. It just moves through her, and she just is. And I think Wachuma can allow us, and so can ayahuasca. These, all these medicines are like they say, all paths lead to Rome, right? All these medicines are leading us to the same place, which is living in our heart, living from the heart, and being present and being in the moment. So a lot of people come to me sometimes, and they say, Freddie, I want to get rid of my pain, I want to get rid of my traumas. And I say, well, I'm sorry, but this is not the place for that. We don't get rid of our traumas, we don't discard them and just throw them in the garbage. You live your whole life with your trauma, you live your whole life with your pain. You just learn to live with grace, understanding, with peace in the heart of that, versus being a victim of it, and allowing your life to spiral because, oh, poor me, I went through all these things. And yes,
Right.
it is a very sad thing, and this is why we take the time to mourn with these medicines, and they're here for that. The opening of the heart doesn't necessarily mean that, wow, my heart's open, everything is pretty, it looks amazing. No, there's that openness that brings the weeping, that brings the deep sorrow, to allow it to come out and to hold space for it. And then once I've held space for it, now it's a lot easier, because I'm no longer containing that, right? So when I'm living in my head, I am meticulous about everything I do, because I don't want to see my pain. So I do all these things, and I create all these stories so that I don't ever have to do it. And then I fall into addictions. All of these things happen. But when I'm living present with everything that comes, and I've learned to make my peace with these things, that's where Wachuma happens, right? Where I'm not in my head. Oh, there's pain. Okay, I'm going to invite that pain, right? The Buddhists have a word, equanimity, right? I'm going to just invite it and allow it and let it be, because it is what it is, right? My pain is my pain. There's no getting rid of it. There's only allowing it the space. And there's also the beauty of impermanence. And it means, it's not going to be here forever. So when we're in pain, there is the allowing of it, and allowing ourselves the grace to move through our pain, without judgment, without feeling, oh, well, I'm so unworthy because I feel depressed and I feel sad. You know, uh, Ayahuasca and Wachuma and all these medicines, at least for myself, something that I'm learning, and I continuously learn with it, is precisely that, is I'm not necessarily ever not going to feel pain anymore. But what happens is I'm learning to move through my pain with a lot more ease, and to allow it with a lot less judgment. Because when I do that, then my pain just is. And then when it comes, I cry, I feel it, it's good, and I thank it, and then I can move forward. And then there's moments of joy. And so I start to see life as the whole rainbow of everything that it is, versus being caught just in that one moment of pain and that one moment of grief that's not allowing me to see the bigger picture, because I'm not allowing myself to feel that, and I'm not allowing myself to move that energy, which is most of the time depression, and all of these mental issues that we have in modern times, has a lot to do with our energetics and
Mm-hmm.
how we are not moving certain energies. So our trauma gets stored in our bodies, which in turn turns into sicknesses and cancers and all these different things. Because since we're children, and I'm not going to generalize everyone's story, but a large amount of the stories being told when I come to these ceremonies is, well, I was very suppressed when I was a child, and I wasn't allowed to cry, I wasn't allowed to scream, I wasn't allowed to throw a tantrum, or whatever these things look like. At some point in our life, we're being told that feelings are not okay. No, you need to hide that, especially men, and
Especially, yeah.
men need to be manly, and we don't
Right.
cry, and we don't do this. And it's completely the opposite. I mean, for
Absolutely.
me to step into my true manhood
Hmm.
and to allow myself to feel everything is, at least for me, what Wachuma has been teaching me too, is that's what being a man really is.
Yes.
Or what being whole really means is I'm whole within everything. So my pain, my joy, all of these different things are the sum of who I am. And
Right.
so if I run away from my pain, if I'm trying to hide my pain or get rid of it, I'm trying to get rid of a part of me that it doesn't work that way,
It
because
just doesn't. I
it
mean,
comes
it
from
doesn't.
not accepting myself. But when
Hmm.
I learn to accept, oh, okay, I grew up like this. I have all this trauma. I have all this depression. I have all this stuff. Cool. This is part of who I am. It's not who I am. I am not all my pain, but my pain is within me. It's a part of me, and I've learned to integrate all of those things into my life and to allow them to be in. You know, this is the real journey when it
Right.
comes to medicine. It's that integration part, and how we work with this medicine afterwards. How do I allow all my parts to be seen and honored and witnessed in a safe container for my own self? So in the ceremony, we create a safe container for you. But outside of that, are you willing to create that container for yourself when you leave the ceremony? And are you willing to bring that ceremony home with you and live in the ceremony? And that's the main ingredient. That's the key
Right.
aspect to it. And coming back to Wachuma is, you have this opportunity to see all these things. Wachuma is a very present and grounding medicine.
Very.
So what it allows you to do is to be with all these aspects of you for 12 to 16 hours, however long the process lasts for you, which is a pretty long time, which is why I don't believe it to be such a mild medicine, because there's a lot to
There's a
unpack
lot.
when you're working for 14, 16 hours with this.
Hmm.
So, it's everything in these medicines can open up doors to the beauty of us, and to the understanding that within that beauty is also all these things that we've been programmed to understand as negative or bad things. And personally, I don't believe my pain to be a bad thing, but rather a great teacher. And this is what I've learned with this medicine it has allowed me to become stronger. It has
Hmm.
taught me to, again, be more mindful of how I treat people, of how I express my energy. And so it also has allowed me to be more humble and less entitled of, oh, well, my life should have been like this, it should have been like that, and should have. No, my life was what it was,
But
and
it was.
how can I be
Right.
grateful for it, and where can I look at the things that actually that are amazing, and what I don't allow myself to see. Right, I get to stand here, I get to wake up every day with my pain, but this has made me so much stronger because it led me to. So all that pain led me to the desire to want to understand it better, to heal it. That's an ongoing journey. I would be lying if I said, well, I'm a man who's healed all of his pain, and I'm fully enlightened, and I know everything. And I would be
Yeah.
lying, because my work happens every single day, and some days
Absolutely.
are much easier than others. Other days are really hard, and I have to. So, but the beauty is, those hard days now, with all the work that I have done and all the tools that I've received through this work, they're not as hard as 9 years ago, because that is the toolbox
Well,
basically
you've got
that
the
we've
tools.
received.
Exactly. You've established the tools. And you know what, Freddie? I love everything you say. You're so humble. I mean, again, I'm going to say, you talk about such valid points, especially how us men, we can't get into our hearts. We can't cry. And that is such a blessing when a man can do that. It's just, it's very powerful, and it was a tough one for me to get to, but once you
Mm.
start doing that, it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing to open that heart. And you also touched on a lot during that whole last conversation about ego dissolution. you know I don't believe in ego dissolution. I don't know how you feel about that. I feel you need to be friends with your ego, learn how to live with your ego, He's carried you this far, and your life has been a blessing because you wouldn't be where you're at today if all these things didn't compound the way they did, and you were aware of it at the moment to start traveling this path. So beautiful things that are happening in this community.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I do appreciate what you say about the ego too. There's, you know, the reason I play music is ego, right? Like I want to be seen, I want to be heard, and that desire comes from the ego. But ego can be that great ally and tool only for, you know, as long as you kind of know how to also keep it at bay. And I think the ego dissolution, or what we call ego dissolution, is perhaps more of a humbling of the ego. And so it allows your ego to still be there, because these are the things that drive us forward, right? These are the things that push us into action. It's the ego that wants to, you know, let's get things done. For me, at least, I see that, you know, the reason why I create music, it's my ego wants to, let's do it. But it's checking it. It's taking the time to tune in and ask, okay, well, what's the intention? You know, this is beautiful. This is creative, powerful energy. What is my intention when I do these things? And that's what I guess allows us to navigate that space of the ego a little bit better, is to, how can I sit with myself and try to be as honest as I can possibly to answer that question. Is and it's the same thing with coming to these medicines. You know, what is my intention? Why have I come, and what am I willing to do for my healing, and what am I willing to do to humble myself so I can be taught? Because that's the ego, is the part of us that thinks, oh well, I know everything. What am I going to learn from this? Or, you know, what can you show me? You know, you're no better than me. And that's where these medicines allow us to have that moment of humble, of the ego death, of allowing that ego to be removed for a little bit, so that we can see, oh wow, this is okay, there is something much bigger than myself, and I can learn from it. The only requirement is that I'm humble, and that I, you know, that I come in a humble approach as a student of it. And, you know, when we come with that approach, there's so many gifts that come and approaching not only the medicines like this, but approaching other human beings in that way, and understanding that, you know, the person that's in front of me is a reflection of the creator, the God,
Absolutely.
whatever you want to call it. And this person can be my teacher. And if I allow myself to come into that space with that humility, then I'm generally going to step out of any interaction with something, you know, new, and something that I'm able to learn from it, because my ego is not in the way of what's really happening. That's what I've learned with these medicines, is to see divinity in front of me at all times. And again, you know, the mind is forgetful, and this is a practice. You know, it takes
Absolutely.
time to get to a point where it's a lot easier to snap out of, you know, whatever our head chatter is, and to allow ourselves to be taught, or to feel, or, you know, whatever's coming through. But, you know, it is a process of taming that ego and humbling it, and allowing ourselves to become students, and to look at things with the eyes of with the eyes of a student. You know, the person in front of me here is my teacher. What can I learn from you? You are an expression of God, and there's something divine in you that can always teach me.
Well, man, what a beautiful conversation tonight. And we touched on a lot of great things. We touched on, man, the medicine's a catalyst. Definitely is a catalyst. There's definitely a process to this whole medicine. It takes a lot of work. It's not an overnight fix, but there's a lot of tools out there that we can garnish. There's integration coaches. There's integration. There's sitting with the medicines. There's yoga. There's breath work. There's so many things that will connect you back. This medicine isn't, you don't have to always continue to use this medicine once you're on this path. This is just a medicine is also a tool. This medicine's also a tool for us to live a better life, live the life that we want to live, you know. And it was great having you tonight, brother. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your ceremonies coming up? Because I know after this conversation, a lot of people will love to sit with you. You got a heart of gold. You're really humble. So why don't you just tell us about some of these, and we'll finish up in a few minutes.
Of course. So we, you know, I guess you guys are seeing the list here. a lot of these ceremonies, I'm working with, like I said, I'm working with Peruvian medicine that comes from a Shipibo family that I study with and work with. I'm actually about to head out to Peru next week for our first retreat to Peru. So, I work on all aspects of that. I offer the medicine out here, but then I also do want to honor the people in the tribes, and I try to take as many groups as I can. This is actually our first retreat, but we're setting them every 2 months. We're going to go down to Peru for 7 days, and we're going to brew ayahuasca. We're going to be, in that space. We're going to learn from the Shipibos in a traditional way, and really immerse ourselves in that. And then most of the ceremonies that I'm going to do ayahuasca here in the United States, I'm going to be running in upstate New York. The dates are there. We have a fabulous team of people. A lot of these people I've been working with since the beginning of my journey. So these are people that are experienced and have been doing this for a while. I'm also going to be offering Wachuma in Massachusetts, Wachuma in New York. I'm all around. It's a beautiful path. I'm very honored to be walking in this path. I also want to mention uh, my sister Krista Harris, whom I also work with in her ceremonies, and I offer you know my my service to these ceremonies. And then at the end of those ceremonies, we also offer Wachuma. And something beautiful that I've noticed that's happening at the end of these ceremonies is, 2 nights of ayahuasca, 1 night of Wachuma. It's a really big weekend. It's a lot of medicine, but it really, Wachuma anchors in the work that we do with ayahuasca so beautifully, and they just weave together very, very beautifully. So, yeah, it's an opportunity to come and share some beautiful medicine and beautiful music. For me, the way that I run ceremonies is very music driven, and I feel like that's where a lot of the work happens. And I should have mentioned this from the beginning, but my first medicine was music, and I believe in the power of music, and I believe in the power of vibration as well. So
Absolutely.
the music that you will be listening to in ceremony will be a definitely guiding force and a powerful tool for you in ceremony. So yeah, everybody who is anybody who might be interested is invited to reach out to me. We'll go through the proper screening processes to make sure that this is the right fit for you and that you're qualified to sit with the medicine. And then soon after that, it's important to prepare for it. There's the diet, there's what we eat, uh, what we are surrounded by, the kind of food that we're eating, the kind of things that we're watching, our exposure to social media. There's a lot of elements that coming to medicine we should be considering, and it's very important to do that work prior to ceremony too, as much as we can. So it's because it allows us that discipline a little bit to come prepared into ceremony. So if I come, it's kind of like doing your homework, right? If I come to school and I haven't done my homework, I'm not as prepared as my classmates are.
Right.
But I do that little bit of homework. It requires a little bit of sacrifice, which could be, could be considered more of an offering. I don't like. It's not that I don't like it, but I rather call a sacrifice an offering.
Gotcha.
It's that, and it's offering, uh, my little desires here and there to eat junk food or to listen to heavy thrash metal or, smoke a joint. All of these little things. If I do the homework of letting them go for respect, it's like you're coming to see your grandmother, your grandfather. Come dressed nice and
Right.
and do your homework.
Right. Absolutely.
Come prepared and
Mhm.
come with respect. That's all. At the end of the day, if I can recommend anything, is come with respect to these medicines. There's a lot of people who work very hard and who have you know put their lives and their tribes, and like this is what they do every single day of their life. They live and breathe these medicines, and they put a lot of work into it. So come to it with that reverence of something that is sacred. It comes from our mother, it comes from the earth. So it is very sacred, and we should hold it that way, and we should approach it that way. So if you're looking for a miracle that's going to do all the work for you, that's going to, take you for a nice ride and give you some visions, this is the wrong place. And please don't
Absolutely.
come to it with preparation of knowing that your life is going to change, and that those changes also are your responsibility to make. It goes hand in hand. She'll only give us as much as we bring to the table too, and how much we're willing to offer. So that's why we come to the fire with an offering. That's why we bring tobacco. That's why we bring all these offerings, because it's also our gift. Instead of just taking, we also bring that part of ourselves to offer to the earth. And the earth is a master alchemist. So she transmutes all our pain. She transmutes all our energy. So all that pain, all that hurt, all that purging that happens in these medicines, the earth wants it and she receives it. So these are our offerings. Is we bring all this, this moment, these 2 weeks that I'm going to take out of my life to prepare, to eat healthy, to stop drinking, to stop smoking, whatever it looks like, to come prepared. That's your offering. That's your banquet of flowers for the earth. That's you saying thank you in advance. And I assure you that when that work is done, you receive so much from it, and so many gifts from it.
The earth's a living, breathing soul, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
It definitely is. Well, I cannot wait to sit with you in a ceremony. I'm really looking forward to that, and so is my wife. So that'll be a blessing. We're going to put all your ceremonies on our Facebook page, The Plant Medicine Path, and plantmedicinepath.com. Freddie, it was a great blessing to have you today. Great conversation. Very enjoyable speaking with you, and much love, brother. You have a great
Mark.
Okay.
You have a beautiful evening, brother. Blessings to everybody. Bye-bye. Bye.